I think the one MVP candidate that's not getting talked about has to be Nikola Jokic, and I've been saying this for the longest time, but I think that Nikola Jokic should be the MVP of the NBA. However, he hasn't been talked about as much for MVP, and a lot of people have been comparing him to Joel Embiid, which I think is cool and all, except I think Jokic is better. And any time I've ever seen someone say, oh, Embiid is better than Jokic by far, I think it's ridiculous, and in today's video, I want to prove why not only Nikola Jokic is better, but why I think he should be the back-to-back NBA MVP of the league. Of course, before I get into the content, basically leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new and notifications on. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year. And number 2, I'm going to be streaming live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Spex tonight around 5 o'clock. We're going to be debating some NBA and just overall having a good time, so if you want to stop by, make sure you do. The link will be in the description below. With all that being said, let's get into the video. I think the biggest argument for why Nikola Jokic isn't going to win MVP, like I mentioned, was because of Joel Embiid. However, this happened last season and Embiid got hurt, so Jokic would inevitably win the MVP. Now, a lot of you guys know that the NBA media actually hated the fact that Jokic won because it's a small market team. Jokic isn't a popular player. In fact, Nick Wright went on to say that this would be the NBA worst MVP of all time, which we obviously know to not be the truth. However, I've been one of the only people saying that Nikola Jokic is better than Joel Embiid and that I had numbers to prove it, and a lot of people were saying that I was lying and I didn't know what I was talking about. Currently this season, Nikola Jokic is averaging about 26, 14, and 8, while Joel Embiid is averaging about 29, 11, and 4. So while Joel Embiid is averaging about 2 to 3 points per game more than Nikola Jokic, Jokic has better stats in every other category. Now, another argument that people were making is their records. They were saying, oh, the 76ers are doing better than the Nuggets by far. I mean, the Sixers are the 2nd seed and the Nuggets are what, a 5 or 6 seed? Which is true and an argument that you could definitely make, except for the fact that we need to give a little bit of context. Currently, the Denver Nuggets are the 6th seed in the Western Conference with a record of 39 and 26, which isn't the best. However, they have an opportunity to maybe jump to the 4th or 3rd seed, which doesn't even compare to the 76ers, right? Even though if we look at the Sixers record, they have a 40 and 24 record. So realistically, the 76ers, who are supposed to be better by far, are only up by 1 to 2 games. And while the Denver Nuggets are one of the hottest teams in basketball right now, winning 9 out of their last 10 games, there's a legitimate chance that the Nuggets could actually have a better record than the 76ers. I mean, looking at the West, the majority of these teams that are barely making the playoffs, you need to have about 40 wins. Meanwhile, if you have 40 wins in the Eastern Conference, then you should be a top 3 lock for the Eastern Conference playoffs. So while the 76ers do have a better record by about 1 to 2 games, the narrative that the Nuggets are just an average team and that they're just not doing that well and that Joel Embiid is leading the Sixers, Nikola Jokic is leading the Nuggets to be an average team is a complete lie. Now, in a video a couple months ago made by Jimmy Highroller, he talked about how Nikola Jokic early in the season should have been considered for MVP. However, he said one of the reasons why Jokic wasn't going to win was because that he didn't have that performance. I'll let Jimmy explain a little more in context, and if you want to see the full video, I'll put it in the link in the description below.
First, Jokic hasn't had a marquee performance this season. You know, that massive game that makes all the headlines and demands fans and voters to reconsider their MVP hierarchy. Every MVP needs a marquee performance to really draw the masses and build their campaign.
Now, this video was made about 3 months ago and the NBA season had just recently started, so obviously he didn't have a marquee performance. However, this week he's had a lot of marquee performances. 2 days ago, Nikola Jokic will put up 46, 12, and 11 with 4 blocks and 3 steals in a comeback win in overtime versus the Pelicans, while shooting 72% from the field that game, only missing 6 shots. That has to be his best game of the season, and anything else after that would just be adding on to his case for MVP. Following day, Nikola Jokic will put up 32, 15, and 13 in a win versus the Warriors. The man continues to have these successful games, and we don't talk about him as much as we really should. We're all talking about Joel Embiid for MVP, however, Jokic is having everything you need to be an MVP candidate, yet we're not discussing him. Oh, and just to add things to Nikola Jokic's campaign, he's leading the NBA in PER, and he's on pace to have the best PER record in the NBA history. But no, we're gonna give it to Joel Embiid. I've said this multiple times, but I think Jokic deserves the MVP and he has the credibility for it. However, I could definitely see the NBA giving it to Embiid. In yesterday's video, I talked about why I didn't like the NBA media, and a point I brought up is where I talked about Nick Wright and his hate for Jokic. And I told you that arguably Nikola Jokic's best game of the season, he ranked it a silver, basically saying that it'd be insane second place compared to some of the other performances he talked about, and there were only 3 possible spots, so you could say he was saying that was the most average out of those 3 performances. I guess following up with a 32-point triple-double literally less than 24 hours after is good enough for a bronze award. I know Nick Wright is begging that Nikola Jokic doesn't get MVP because, again, this guy hates on him for absolutely no reason, and I will still have no idea why. I mean, this is the same guy that said that Nikola Jokic winning MVP would be bad for the NBA, which I thought was completely ridiculous because he's deserving of the award. And again, I've gone over the fact that he's not the worst NBA MVP of all time. In fact, can we argue that Nikola Jokic is a top 3 player in the NBA, and when you really look at it, he's right there with Giannis for the best player in the NBA? Stat-wise, he has it. However, the only problem with Nikola Jokic's game is that to most people, it's considered boring, which as someone that loves the game of basketball and watching it, I don't look just for flashy stuff, and that's why I love watching Nikola Jokic. He plays in slow motion, yet he's a beast. He will drop a 40+ point triple-double while rarely moving his feet off the ground. Doesn't have to make some deep threes, he doesn't have to dunk over your favorite player, he doesn't have to do a special crossover, he just does really good post moves and can pass. In fact, the only clips of Nikola Jokic that go viral are his insane passes. However, his other things like his amazing post moves and his IQ doesn't get shown. For some players, these no-look passes would look as of a highlight and something rare. However, with Nikola Jokic, this is something he does all the time. But no, let's just show a little more Ja Morant almost having a dunk over someone. It's ridiculous at this point, and it's kind of annoying. And that's no hate to Ja Morant or Steph Curry or all these other guys having these insane highlights. It's just the fact that Jokic does this on a daily basis. So when you do see it, it's like, oh my god, that was such a cool pass, but we don't talk about the fact that this is normal for him. I want to end off the video by saying this. Nikola Jokic is arguably the best center in the NBA, and if you try to debate with someone, they're gonna tell you that Joel Embiid is better. In fact, if you didn't watch this video or any other video talking about this matter, you might have thought that Joel Embiid was better statistically by far, and it wasn't even close. However, Embiid isn't that much better than Jokic, and I would argue he's not even better. And what sucks is I don't want to be like, oh, one's better than the other. I love Joel Embiid just like I love Nikola Jokic, and in the words of J. Cole, and I've quoted this quote so many times on this channel, why can't 2 legends coexist? Jokic just came out before and said that he respects Embiid's game. It sucks that you either have to pick a side or you have to say that one sucks and the other one doesn't. I like both of these players, however, in my personal opinion and with the stats I've shown you, I think Jokic is a better player, and that's not disrespect on Joel Embiid because there are so many talented players in the NBA. However, Jokic is just better. If Joel Embiid is to win the MVP, it wouldn't necessarily shock me. I could see it coming. I could see them voting for Embiid instead of Jokic. However, let's not ignore greatness. That's something I don't want to do, and I don't think others want that to happen either. I know Nick Wright is begging for this not to happen because he tries to convince us that Jokic isn't a good player, but the day Jokic wins back-to-back MVPs, I'm buying a Jokic jersey and I'm sending it to Nick Wright.